Welcome back, Leaders Live. Charlie Stevens, your host, here with Kunal Mehta, Principal Hearst Ventures.
Yeah, good
Welcome
to be here.
Show.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thanks
to
a
the
lot.
show. You guys are investing in media technology companies, information companies.
Right.
A lot of exciting things going on. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about your book.
Yep.
But welcome to the show. We're streaming on Facebook, YouTube today, LinkedIn, all these different platforms. So that's exciting. You got the first opportunity
I'm
to go.
excited to be here. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, it's worldwide here.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Before Hearst Ventures, you're the principal of Hearst Ventures, and the book. Before the book, give us context where you started out. You were Wall Street, went to Charity Water. Seems like two complete opposite things.
Yeah, for sure.
And then now you're in venture capital. So give us a little context.
For sure. Yeah, I'll give you the long spiel of it. But I am from Brooklyn originally, and in 2007, Jake Morgan offered a program right out of high school where you had to work for them full time during the summers and part time during the school year, but they would cover your tuition. So 2007, Wall Street was at its peak, joined them back then, spent the 4 years there, kind of saw it go through this valley and drop off.
Crazy times.
Super interested about the work, and but just realized long term this isn't what I wanted to do. I did another year after graduating on Wall Street, but everywhere I was looking, there were younger people or people my age who were starting these really incredible companies, and everything you read in New York and all the tech journals made it seem like this was very easy to go and start on your own. I'm doing this investment banking job, I'm staying there every single night so late, I could be working on my own company, and I'm so smart, I could launch something huge. So I quit without much of a plan and thought I would try to launch a business, and really quickly realized I had no idea what I was actually doing.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was talking to friends, I was talking to other people that had graduated, other people on Wall Street who wanted to also be in that position of trying to start something, and realized that many of those people were also reading only the success stories and not reading what it looks like in the first 6 months of when you leave a corporate job to start up a company on your own. So ended up going out there and interviewing leaders, kind of like similar to what you're doing now, in their specific industries and why they left positions of security to launch their own company. And they were all getting started off then, but they've ended up being the founders of Betterment and Pinterest and Foursquare and Charity Water.
Very successful businesses.
Yeah, really good businesses. Met Scott Harrison through that process.
He's the CEO of Charity Water.
CEO of Charity Water. Really incredible person. Really incredible, interesting story of how he started that organization, which is for another time. Maybe on the next show.
Yeah, we'll get him on, possibly, right?
Exactly.
Tell his story.
Exactly.
But that's interesting. You were interviewing them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're basically, you're like, I want to
passing my resume across, right?
Exactly. Nice, smart strategy.
Yeah, it was good. It was really interesting, and I think Charity Water was most juxtaposed to what I was doing on Wall Street. It was very much about the mission of the organization is providing clean and safe drinking water in developing countries. But it was also a small organization with tech-driven, so you're sitting next to the people that are working on product, you're sitting next to people that are building the product, you're sitting next to the finance team, the water projects team, which is actually going in the field to do the work. So just that environment, that atmosphere was extremely interesting, and it kept me fueled and kept me excited going to work. So
hands-on with a startup, growing it.
Exactly, yeah. So I was on their finance team, but we were interacting with partners all over the world all the time, and learning from people who had also left kind of pretty lucrative careers in different places to come and build this. They taught me a lot about what they were doing and how they were seeing this impact through, and learned from Scott Harrison and kind of the management team on how they thought about a nonprofit in the current realm and how you change the image of a nonprofit, how you make it more efficient. So did that for about 2 years, and then published that book that I was talking about earlier with these conversations. Disruptors, yeah.
Right.
So published that, and then did a book tour, which led to, so did a lot of the big universities, but that led to a startup opportunity, which I can go into later. But we worked on it for about 2 years. We raised some venture financing for it also. And ultimately, it didn't work out, but learned a lot through the process.
Right.
And I think with most people that kind of try to start their company in this ecosystem and in technology, we were very interested in the venture capital ecosystem and kind of how these ideas were getting funded. So ended up, after that didn't work out, transitioned and first invested through NYU's endowment. They have a venture fund there. It's a $20 million venture fund. And then after that, 2 years ago, I moved over to Hearst Ventures. So
nice. So
give you the background on Hearst.
Let's pause for a second.
Sure.
The Disruptors book, you interviewing all these top CEOs and founders. were there any that stood out to you that were like a great lesson learned that you took with you today that you share with the other founders?
Yeah.
That or maybe or a mentor.
For sure, yeah. I mean, there's a couple of really interesting stories. Vin Vacanti from Yipit, who is kind of one of the big staples of the New York tech scene from 2012 to 2013 and still building a really impressive company. Nahal Mehta, who you had on the show already, who launched a couple of companies and built out ENIAC Ventures. I think what I realized from both of them is that this idea of the overnight success story is a big myth.
Yeah.
They launched, Vin Vacanti, for example, shares it in the book. He had launched 13 businesses leading up to Yipit, but kept getting better at it because the first business to launch took about a year. And by the 13th business that he launched, the prototype of it, like the very basic prototype of what he wanted to do, he did over a weekend. And I guess he just kept getting better and better at launching product and learning what customers wanted and figuring out if the idea had wheels or not. And Yipit's a profitable company and they're still in existence. So I think that's really impressive of learning that this is not an overnight success story. It's going to take a while. Nahal, the same thing. He filed for bankruptcy, I think, at 22. Yeah. Had a couple of failed startups, but then launched a couple that did really well, and now he's funding some of the best New York City startups because he has that experience and that network and has that eye to find companies. So saw a bunch of interesting ones like that.
Yeah, he talked about the muscle memory too of having all these startup. Right. The more companies you start up, you're like, okay, that worked. I'm going to use that, and then keep going back.
I think he got addicted to it also. I think it's very addicting of like trying to put something out there and that risk. It's hard to go back to, I think, a more traditional, and that's what he says all the time. So.
Right. Well, when you have like Elon Musk on your advisory board coming and meeting with you every other month, like that seems pretty addictive to be hanging out with these types of people and building these types of people.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the business Hearst Ventures. We talked about investing in information technology, media companies. Give us a little bit of the strategy you have at Hearst Ventures.
Sure.
And then we'll talk about your
book. So I've been at Hearst Ventures for about 2 years. It's a really incredible place to work. The fund itself is all balance sheet capital, evergreen fund. It's been around for, I think, over 2 decades now. The people that launched it are still there. But the first investment they made was in Netscape, and that was with the CEO of Hearst.
Right.
The first generation of investments have been primarily media. And those were Roku, Pandora, SiriusXM, a ton of really successful investments in media, BuzzFeed. And then more recently, the organization has also continued to evolve and invest in new emerging areas that are of interest. So kind of data businesses that are software driven and technology driven. So we own, we've had the fortune of, we own Fitch Ratings now. Wholly owned. They work with Hearst and they work well with the team. First Data Bank and Healthcare Home Base on the healthcare side, and then there's a transportation and mobility arm as well. So all of these pieces are making Hearst kind of a more diversified business. And Ventures acts as the tip of that. It's like we can invest in new areas that might be of interest to the company, but all balance sheet capital. We don't need to find a strategic partner at Hearst. But we work with them closely in what areas they're interested in and find opportunities like that. So we do primarily Series A and onward. And the verticals that we're specifically interested in now are transportation, mobility, fintech, logistics, shipping. We've recently started looking at more cybersecurity as well. But looking really at enterprise, B2B, SaaS businesses as well.
Right,
so,
right.
So we're looking.
Well, I think we got some good people we should introduce you to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Scout Ventures, or Scout Cybersecurity.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Your role, principal, is basically sourcing new deals. I mean, talk about what you're doing.
So we do, everybody on the team is sourcing deals. Whether you're the analyst, the principal, the associate, the directors, head of the group, we're all kind of out there meeting with founders at the earliest points of their journey, spending time with them, seeing if it's a fit, learning at Hearst kind of what people in the businesses are interested in too. So me specifically, I'll spend quite a bit of time sourcing and meeting with founders within those verticals and those interest areas. And then some of the directors have developed expertises in those specific verticals. So I'll sit down with them and we'll analyze the business together. With some of the areas that I'm now more interested in, like cybersecurity, I'm also spending quite a bit of time doing research, reading white papers, going to conferences to build my own sense of whether this is a framework or a landscape that I want to invest in and why exactly, what's the jigsaw puzzle, where everything is coming together and where I see the opportunity. So we each are doing that. For example, one director on our team is looking at contextual communications, and she's also looked at transportation and mobility. Prior to this, we built out this entire thesis on voice interfaces and where that was going. So it was not very much of like going out there and trying to meet every company. She was very focused in where do I see the opportunity after meeting with 10 startups, building my thesis on the space, and then trying to find the right one that fits that. So that's kind of how the team is spending our time.
When you're meeting with these founders, you have your strategy, but what stands out to you with a founder that has unique quality or characteristics that's going to be successful?
Yeah,
like, what are you looking for?
I think one of the things that's fueled sort of what Nahal was telling you too, is fueled by my own experience and the muscle memory, is that I didn't have much of a business starting a media company in the first place. I didn't have any experience. Now if I see someone from Hearst who's been there for 10 or 15 years starting a company, or another media company starting a media business, that's interesting, compelling, because they have that experience, they have that unique insights that I develop over a career. So I'm looking for people, I think similar to my directors, is that areas where we can meet founders that have been doing this for a long time and they understand the business really well. So you've been in real estate. If you were saying that we're going to start a real estate tech company for commercial real estate in New York, that would be extremely compelling and interesting. So we want to find the unique reason why a founders decide to go and do this, and spend more time digging deeper into that and figuring out if that's the right business.
I like that. Once you identify these I guess, potential portfolio companies, what are some of the tips and strategies for growth? I mean, your team is going to help them potentially grow the business, and that's the idea to give them the funding.
Right.
I mean, what do you leave with them to try to grow?
I think, it's different. So each of us takes a board seat. So all the directors are sitting on the boards of the companies that they've invested in. So they're helping them on a day-to-day basis, thinking about strategy, broadly business, and using their muscle memory from other companies they've worked on. Hearst as a whole, I mean, there's been cases where we've invested in companies where now we can offer, there's one of our portfolio companies that came in and said they wanted to learn more about the media landscape because they were considering going into that and learning more about digital marketing. So we introduced them to people on the magazines and newspapers division that are doing that to help them learn a bit more about how that side of the business works.
Right.
It's just an informal conversation, just giving them access to more talent and people that know industries better than they might. Which is unique. So we've just broadened their network to all of Hearst. So I think that's one of the big things that helps some of these founders grow. And then by sitting on the board, I think it's seeing what obstacles and roadblocks they might face and what they can take out of their way by being on the board. It's just another extension to the team by being a board member. Right.
So, I mean, you're bringing your strengths and attributes. That's great. And I mean, you have a great Rolodex, which we'll bring into the network aspect of it. But before we leave off with what's going on at Hearst, the culture at Hearst is a segment we have sponsored by Hugo Team, which is searchable meeting notes that connects your favorite tools. Big shout out to Hugo Team. But the culture at Hearst Ventures, what is that, and what do you try to instill in your
in case my boss is listening, I hope he really tunes in this point. But no, actually, it's really collaborative. It's really nice because I think the difference between Hearst Ventures and Hearst is it's been around for a long time. It's been around, I mean, Ventures has been around for over 2 decades. The Hearst Corporation, kind of influenced by the family, influenced by really good CEOs over time, influenced by a good management team. So it's a much more friendly environment. People stay for a long time. So the people that are on my team, they've been there for 15 or 20 years, and they're there for that reason.
Yeah.
So we have a US function, about 6 investors. And then we have one in the UK, one in Israel, and one in China. So we're becoming more international as a venture fund too, which shares good perspectives. But the culture is still very collaborative between all of those. So if our counterpart Israel has found a company in mobility or transportation that he finds interesting, he'll share that across with us and we'll get into it. It's the same thing with if we're seeing companies here that we think are expanding into the UK, so we'll share that. But it's a really good culture and environment to work in.
It sounds like a good communication too. Between how do you make that communication efficient through? I mean, you have these different offices.
I think between software, we have the Monday morning partner meeting, so everybody sits on that and we share notes. We have offsites where they come in and we spend time together. But communication between the investors has been easy because it's a small team. I think what's also interesting is that the ventures team, where technology is changing and radically shifting so many businesses outside, we're seeing that internally too, where Hearst Corporate has also been doing more work and things like that. So we're spending more time talking to people at the organization that aren't like Fitch. Now there's all these people that have been coming in, and we're spending time with them to learn about their businesses. So the culture is constantly evolving and changing and been collaborative across all these new separate businesses, which has been interesting.
Makes sense. We'll jump back to the partnerships and collaboration aspect of it. You were talking when you sit on the board advisor,
right,
and you put together these collaborative environments as well. What in the partnerships and collaboration aspect, what do you see that makes a good partnership? What is a success story that maybe you could share?
Sure.
But something like that, so that somebody who's potentially looking to make a partnership,
right?
Either me looking for a partnership with the show or whatever. You know what I mean? What works and why did it work?
Sure. I think with Hearst specifically, some of the partnerships that they've made have been. Let me talk. I mean, I guess with Hearst Corporate, for example, when we're making partnerships for our portfolio companies with other people that work in the organization, it's very much a handshake of, here's what you're interested in at Hearst, and here's what you're interested in as a startup founder. How can we connect you guys and get you guys introduced and in the room together? More broadly, how Hearst Ventures plays in New York City, or how I as an investor play in New York City, I think between the book stuff, between investing, we're working very closely with seed funds and with angel funds and things like that, pre-seed funds, who are looking for follow-on capital for their portfolio companies. So we do calls every 6 weeks or every 8 weeks to talk about the portfolio companies that they've been looking at and who's getting ready to raise, and we'll meet with those founders and we'll help tell them at the Series A, this is exactly what we're looking for. So what can you do as an investor that's sitting on their board to help think about how they scale up?
Right.
So I think the partnerships are very much in terms of what is in it, not in a negative sense, in a cynical sense of what's in it for each person.
Right, well, adding value.
Adding value. But and I think that's become such a pithy word, especially in venture capital. But I think the sense is like, what the seed investors, can we be honest and transparent with them about, this is what excites us about your business, this is what we're concerned about, and what can you do to help your portfolio company come up there? So when we meet them, we believe that our committee will get excited about this. So that's how we're sort of thinking about partnerships within New York, within Hearst, broadly.
And then the networking aspect of it, or the building your network, right? I mean, you can add value if you have a strong network, and you can introduce people to a lot of different other people. Right. The right people, once you understand and listen to what they're doing. Right. But how have you built your network so the LinkedIn community could possibly understand that, try to grow their network?
Sure. I think so between the first book and the second book, it's been a ton of. The first book was a lot of cold outreach. I was leaving Wall Street. I didn't know anybody in tech. Very few people wanted to meet someone with a Wall Street resume. So there's a lot of cold outreach. And just saying honestly and with humility, like, I just left Wall Street. I'm confused about my career. Will you be willing to talk in a coffee? And I was surprised. More people were very willing to do that.
Is this through email or
just through email?
Calls? Anything?
Cold email. I was really looking to build out the first book and get these conversations, and then over time wanted to meet certain founders. That getting Scott Harrison from Charity Water, I was trying so many different angles, and then finally found an introduction. Same thing with Nahal. Same thing with Vin. There's a bunch of all these people that I really wanted to speak with. Alexa Von Tobel from LearnVest was through 3 different introductions. So then getting my hit list of exactly who I wanted to speak with, who could connect me with them. And it's the same thing now too. I mean, there's founders that we really want to speak with, and we get excited about their company. So we build a list and we say, okay, let's try cold. Let's try it through an investor. Let's try, if we can't do that, let's go very deep in their space and better understand it, and then come with a more tailored, unique pitch to them on why they should take this meeting. It's the same thing with these investors in the second book, is that it's been very much, I want to hear your story. More people want to hear to help me get it out there. So it's been.
What's the craziest story of trying to get to someone? I mean, you said there was 3 different introductions, but like, I mean, there's got to be something. You wait outside a coffee or a place or something like that. But like,
maybe I didn't work hard enough. Yeah. I should have probably sat in the lobby and coffee shops with people more. I think it was just a lot through email. I probably should have done more of that, because I really wanted, so 2 people I wanted the founders of Warby Parker for the first book. They were just getting started then. And I thought it was like the most fascinating. They hadn't opened up their stores, they were just online, and I think they'd just raised their seed round. And I got a bunch of big people in the first book and a bunch of big people in the second one, but for the second one I really wanted to speak with Kirsten Green from Forerunner. And it's just hard. It's like you also know these people are getting so many interview requests. They have so much time. So I should have maybe tried something more desperate for both of them, but maybe for the third book I'll do one.
I mean, you got a lot of great people. Let's talk about Finding Genius, what you're doing here, venture capitalists, and the future of they're betting on. The book, I mean, you're talking with a lot of different founders again. I mean, what are we going to expect in this book?
So this book was based off of when I went out for Disruptors in the book tour, a lot of people at universities were asking less about the founders and they were asking more about how do I get my idea funded and how does venture capital work and why I'm a female, why are only less than 2% of females getting funded? Or I live in Pippa Passes, Kentucky, and all the money is on either coast, like how does venture capital even operate? So that was intriguing. And then I went out to raise money for my own operation and realized that it's extremely inefficient. You're kind of cold emailing investors. You're hoping that you have the right thesis on a business. And then the other piece was, are all these investors that backed Uber, Airbnb, Pinterest, Tesla, SpaceX just lucky, or did they have a really good thesis behind these companies? So those are some of the questions that I started going through when I started writing this book. And then realized, despite my best efforts, I was speaking to people that represented the same gender, socioeconomic background, age group, geography, and they had really interesting perspectives, but I also wanted to broaden it a bit more to understand if that genius thing actually exists. So what we did is the back half of the book, the last 7 or 8 chapters, are written by an emerging, more diverse group of VCs where they've gone into individual verticals on healthcare, on consumer, on media, on blockchain, on artificial intelligence, on healthcare, to share their specific perspectives on what's happening in those industries. So you can read the first 15, 20 chapters of venture capital and then go deep into those. So that's how it's broken.
It's exciting. I'm ready to jump into this. This is going to be my train read for a while. I'm pretty excited. As we kind of wrap up, can you give us a little bit of the words to live by that you have, personal mantra or ethos that possibly, that you could share with the community, maybe inspire or motivate them?
That's a hard one. I mean, I had a really pithy thing that I used to say during one of my first talks, but it was always this idea of, I think, realizing the optionality. I think leaving Wall Street, I always kept thinking that this was it, my career was over. I'm never going to get another job. And then went from Wall Street to nonprofits to starting my own company in venture capital. So I've been bouncing around quite a bit. And through that, just kept failing again and again. So I know people talk about failure in this glamorized, glorified sense, but I think just embracing some of those failures along the way and then realizing that there's options and bounce back paths, that's something that I keep living by. So if something doesn't take off immediately, or I'm working to get it bigger, or same thing with I'm trying to go deep into a sector, just that idea of realizing that there's more options to go out there and find new ways of getting it. So that's been a helpful way of me getting through.
I like that. I like that a lot. We have added one more segment.
Okay.
All right, and it's usually someone who a person or company you're trying to connect with, and it's kind of like a challenge for the LinkedIn community. If somebody within our network possibly knows them, they can make an introduction for you if they made it this far, right? Is there somebody, and maybe we could go back to the book or books or the next book, someone that's maybe on top of your list that you didn't get to that maybe we're going to try to help you get to?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, I think Kirsten Green is, I think just everything she's built with Forerunner Ventures and the brand they've built and the investments they've made, I would just love to sit for coffee and just learn more from her. But I talked to some people from their team too, and they have the same impression. I think everybody in venture capital has a lot of respect for what she's built. One person I'm super interested in meeting, which I don't know if he's actually on LinkedIn, is Walter Isaacson. So he's done a lot of the books on big leaders and big people and done these long, and that's what I want my third book to be, is a biography on one of the larger people in one of the books that I've done. And he's done these huge pieces that have turned into movies, and just understanding from him exactly how he goes about studying someone's life to learn and tease out those lessons, I think would be really interesting.
Right, I like that. So anyone who knows someone at Forerunner or Walter Isaacson, let's make this happen. That's it for today, this week. Appreciate your time. The doll's going to hit it, and we're going to hit the music, and we're going to wrap it up. We'll get back to work today,
Thanks a lot. I
cool,
appreciate
man.
it. Thank you.
I'm pumped to Jack.
Good, nice.
Jump into this.
The happiness in music is undisputed.